There's a phrase that gets repeated in diplomatic circles, in history textbooks, in tourist brochures: the world's longest undefended border. Nearly 9,000 kilometers, stretching from the Atlantic to the Pacific, separating two nations that have been at peace for over 200 years. It's a symbol of trust, of cooperation, of what neighbors should be. But symbols have a dangerous quality. They let us believe things are stable when the ground beneath them is already cracking. This week, we need to talk about what's happening between Canada and the United States. Not the sanitized version you'll hear from politicians, not the talking points designed to calm investors, the reality. Because what's unfolding right now is not just a trade dispute. It's the quiet unraveling of an economic relationship that generations took for granted. And the rupture is already showing up in places Washington isn't even looking. Let me start with something concrete, something you can measure: tourism. In the past 6 months, Canadians have been canceling trips to the United States at a scale that border state economies have never seen. Hotels in Buffalo are reporting vacancy rates they haven't experienced outside of a recession. Restaurants in Detroit are cutting staff hours. Ski resorts in Vermont are watching their seasonal projections collapse. This isn't an accident. This isn't weather or gas prices or some random consumer trend. This is behavioral economics playing out in real time. And it's a signal that should terrify anyone paying attention. Because tourism is a trust-based industry. You don't visit a place you don't feel good about. You don't spend money in a country that just threatened to annex yours as a joke. Or maybe it wasn't a joke. That's the problem. Nobody knows anymore. And when trust evaporates, spending follows. Now, politicians will tell you that tariffs are about protection. They'll say we need to defend American workers, American industries, American sovereignty. It's a compelling story. It's simple. It's emotionally satisfying. It's also economically illiterate. Here's how tariffs actually work. The importer pays the tariff, not the foreign country, not the foreign company. The American business importing the goods pays the tax. And then, because businesses don't absorb costs out of charity, they pass that cost to you, the consumer. So when you hear we're putting a 25% tariff on Canadian goods, what you should hear is American companies are about to pay 25% more, and you're about to pay them back at the register. But it gets worse. Because the United States and Canada don't have separate economies that happen to trade with each other, they have an integrated economy that has been built over decades. Let me give you an example. A single automobile crosses the US-Canada border an average of 7 times during its production. The steel is smelted in Hamilton, the parts are machined in Michigan, the assembly happens in Ontario, the final finishing is done in Kentucky. One product, multiple border crossings. That's not trade, that's a supply chain. And when you disrupt a supply chain with tariffs, with threats, with political theater, you don't protect jobs, you destroy the entire system. The plant in Michigan loses its supplier. The factory in Ontario loses its buyer. The workers on both sides lose their paychecks. This is what happens when you apply zero-sum thinking to a positive-sum system. Complex systems don't bend, they break. And once they break, they don't go back together easily. Now, there's an argument you'll hear from tariff advocates. They'll say, yes, there will be short-term pain, but long-term, we'll rebuild our industries, we'll bring the jobs back. It's a nice theory, it's also wrong. Because the people who benefit from tariffs are not the workers. They're small, concentrated producer groups who have the political power to lobby for protection. Maybe it's a steel mill in Pennsylvania. Maybe it's a dairy lobby in Wisconsin. They get the benefit. But the cost? The cost is diffused across millions of consumers who each pay a little bit more. And because the pain is spread so thin, because it's just a few extra dollars on your grocery bill or your car payment, nobody organizes, nobody resists. This is classic regulatory capture. A small group wins big, everyone else loses small, and the politicians get to pretend they helped. But let's get back to the ground level, because while the economists are debating theory, real people in real communities are already paying the price. Buffalo, New York, Detroit, Michigan, Seattle, Washington. These are border cities. Their economies depend on cross-border traffic, Canadian tourists, Canadian shoppers, Canadian business travelers, and those people aren't coming anymore. Fewer visitors means reduced hours at hotels. Reduced hours means layoffs. Layoffs mean less tax revenue for municipalities. Less tax revenue means cuts to public services. This is the transmission path, and it moves faster than national data can capture. By the time the trade statistics show up in a government report 6 months from now, the damage will already be done. The businesses will have closed. The workers will have moved. The habits will have changed. And habits, once changed, rarely revert. Now, there's a fantasy that gets repeated in Washington. If Canadians stop coming, Europeans will replace them. We'll just attract different tourists. It's wishful thinking that ignores basic behavioral reality. Canadians are not like European tourists. Canadians drive across the border for a weekend. They go shopping. They visit family. They come frequently, stay multiple days, and spend consistently. European tourists fly in once, hit the major cities, and leave. You cannot replace the structural backbone of border state tourism with occasional overseas visitors. The economics don't work, the seasonality doesn't work, the spending patterns don't work. But by the time policymakers figure this out, the damage will be permanent. Let me talk about something that doesn't show up in trade statistics, but matters more than almost anything else: confidence. Markets don't just run on prices and supply and demand. They run on trust. Trust lowers transaction costs. Trust allows long-term investment. Trust is what makes businesses sign contracts, hire workers, and build facilities. And trust is being destroyed when the President of the United States jokes about annexing Canada, when tariffs get threatened via social media, when trade policy becomes performance art. What signal does that send? It tells businesses, don't make long-term plans here. The rules can change overnight. It tells investors, hedge your exposure. This relationship is unstable. It tells Canadians, you are not an ally. You are a transaction. And once that signal is sent, once trust is broken, rebuilding it takes years, decades even. Trust loss is asymmetric. It disappears quickly. It returns slowly. This brings us to the strategic shift that's already happening in Canada. Quietly, without press releases, without announcements, Canadians are redirecting their spending, not to the United States, inward, toward domestic tourism, toward domestic goods. And when they do spend internationally, they're looking at Europe, Asia, Latin America. This is economic diversification, and it's rational. Why would you tie your economic future to a partner that treats you as an adversary? Why would you remain dependent on a market that can turn hostile based on a tweet? Canada is reducing its exposure to U.S. volatility. And in doing so, the United States is losing soft economic power, the ability to shape another country's behavior, not through force, but through economic integration. That power is evaporating, and it's not coming back.